Are you a fan of The Godfather? Well, even if you're not, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, which is a fantastic drama from Paramount Plus, which tells the origin story of one of the greatest movies ever made.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hello and welcome to Screen OD. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, my name is Tim. I'm an editor and a journalist who has been writing and talking about TV for, well, nearly 15 years now. Not constantly, I do take breaks occasionally, but yeah, it's been a while now. If you're returning to the channel, you know who I am. Thanks for coming back. It's great to see you again. Now, if you haven't subscribed already, please do consider subscribing to Screen OD for all the best content direct to your feed. And if you do, write in the comments below, I subscribed, so I can say hi and find out a bit more about the kind of TV and movies that you like. Well, today we are talking about The Offer, which is a new show from Paramount Plus. Now, in the UK, Paramount Plus has just launched, and I know that some of the shows on Paramount Plus have been available for a little bit longer in America. So if you're watching in the US, apologies if you may already know a little bit more about this series than the UK audience, but this is the origin story of one of the greatest films ever made. Yes, it's all about The Godfather.
Listen here, Bob. Paramount is going to come crashing down. We need hits.
You've read The Godfather, right?
Godfather. Sure, who hasn't?
We've been all over town. No one wants to make this movie. So I need you to produce it. Get going.
I can't believe you told me you read it. You better read fast on the plane.
Oh yeah, that's big.
Okay, so what's this all about? Well, as discussed, this is the story of the making of the film The Godfather, which may sound to some like a strange way to spend 10 hours of premium television. Well, those who are film buffs amongst us will know that there's a fascinating story behind the making of The Godfather, and it wasn't something that came together particularly easy, and it wasn't something that didn't have quite a lot of resistance from different people throughout the production process. Now, the backdrop of this is that Paramount as a studio hadn't been doing particularly well in the late 1960s. They hadn't had many hits for a while, and they were looking for something big to change the perception of the studio and to get people back with bums on seats in theaters across America and across the world. Now, the issue that they had is that they had made gangster films quite recently in the past, and none of them had done particularly well. So when they had owned the rights to The Godfather, which had become a smash hit novel by Mario Puzo across America. It was a New York Times bestseller for over a year, and they owned the rights to it, but there was still some fear that making a gangster film may not work for them as a studio. And this is the story of what went on during that period and when they went into production. The primary story here is told through the eyes of a young Albert S. Ruddy, Al Ruddy, the legendary producer of the Godfather film. We meet him when he is still a computer programmer, and he has a chance meeting with some people that lead him into television. He ends up co-creating the series Hogan's Heroes, the comedy, and then he walks out of that because he wants to get into the movies. And it's in Paramount that he finds himself trying to get a job, and he works with them and becomes known as someone who can make stuff on a lower budget. And that's when he eventually ends up with the chance to try and convince people to make The Godfather. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be an easy task because, as discussed, Paramount have had problems with gangster films, and also they have issues with finding a writer for the film and a director. This is something that he works on because he goes to Mario Puzo, who is the author of the book, and although it is known that it's not normally done in Hollywood to get the author at that time to write the screenplay, he starts to work with Puzo, and then he manages to convince Francis Ford Coppola to come on board, and the magic of the film begins to come together. Al, who is played by Miles Teller, is joined in his early days at Paramount by Bettye McCartt, who kind of introduces herself to him and basically gives herself the job as his secretary and personal assistant. And she becomes a really important part of his journey in Hollywood because seemingly she knows everything and everyone and how everything works. And so, because he is relatively new to the process of film production, she is able to work with him to create a team that that will get things done. And she is played on screen by the excellent Juno Temple, who many of you may know from the Apple TV Plus comedy, which has won all sorts of awards, Ted Lasso. She brings a really strong and gritty female lead to a show that is otherwise very male dominated, as you would expect for a show that is set in the late 1960s, early 1970s in Hollywood, when most of the people making decisions were male. At Paramount, you also have the central character of Robert Evans, who's played by Matthew Goode, and he's played very well by Matthew Goode. He is kind of exactly what you would expect from an exec at that sort of time in the world of Hollywood. He is creative, he is having cocktails at 9 a.m, he is interested in the art much more than necessarily the hits. Now, to temper that, he has people like Barry Lapidus, who are following him around. He's played by Colin Hanks, who is a constant reminder that he needs to be making money, and is of course occasionally visited by Charles Bluhdorn, who is the person who owns Gulf and Western, the great industrialist, who's played by Gorman. And he is of course someone that Evans has to deal with, but he has his own way of dealing with it. And this is a interesting relationship that you start to develop over time. And between what's going on the corporate side and then the actual making of The Godfather with Francis Ford Coppola, with Mario Puzo, and of course with Albert Ruddy and Bettye McCartt, you've got yourself a really interesting interplay of different types of things going on within a big movie environment. One of the other major threads in the story is that of Joe Colombo, head of one of the five families. He's played in the show by Giovanni Ribisi, and this is someone who has been offended by the publication of Mario Puzo's book, The Godfather, and is someone who is against the making of the film. He sees the whole thing as being offensive to Italian Americans, and he is someone who wants to stop what is going on. And that means that a lot of the folklore around The Godfather and the making of the series starts to play out around this storyline, especially the famous meeting that happened between Mario Puzo and Frank Sinatra in a restaurant, and what was said on that occasion. That plays out on screen, along with lots of other storylines around how Joe Colombo was offended by this entire project.
You want to make a movie that's going to make my people look like animals, and that ain't going to happen.
I respect what you're saying, and I think I have a solution to our problem.
Now, this is just a compelling piece of television. If you're a big film fan or a big fan of the Godfather franchise, there's definitely going to be a lot more in it than if you're not. But that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it if you're not. You know, if you like the Godfather, then obviously you've got the characters, you've got the stories, you've got the kind of folklore around it all coming alive. There's lots of references and homage to that, but also to Paramount and also to cinema at the time, when there were lots of really big actors making some of their biggest works. And all of that stuff comes alive and is brought alive in a kind of Mad Men style way, with exceptional attention to detail on how things look on screen. And also, you've got to remember that this is made by Paramount Plus, so there is lots of reference to Paramount as a studio and kind of bringing alive the studio lot and a lot of the history around it. So there is kind of a lot of interesting film stuff there. But even if you just are looking for a TV show to watch and you're not necessarily that interested in the making of The Godfather, this has got enough to it. It's got enough characters, it's got enough storylines that have been interwoven and given enough time to develop that I think that you're going to enjoy it. Looking out for great performances as well from the likes of Matthew Goode and Juno Temple, which really draw you into those characters and take you with them throughout the story. This is a show that I recommend you give a try if you're a film fan, or even if you're not, because there is something in it for everyone.
That's movie magic, baby.
The Offer is available to watch on Paramount Plus right now, whether you're in the UK or the US, so why not go and give it a try. Right, that's all we've got time for in this video. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful, insightful, or even entertaining. If it's any of those things, why not hit that like button and help other people discover this content. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to Screen OD for all the best content direct to your feed. Go check out all our other videos on the best things to watch and stream. And we'll see you again very soon.